Welcome back to the Church of the Promise. This morning is our final stop in our 7-week series on the hard sayings of Jesus. We've spent 7 weeks looking at some of the difficult things that Jesus said. Some of those sayings were hard to understand, and some were hard to think about, like the one last week. Love your enemy and pray for those who persecute you. Who wants to do that? But today's hard saying is more like a hard but exciting challenge. It sounds difficult to do, but fun to try. Like mountain climbing or whitewater rafting. You look at the massive pile of rocks in front of you, or you look out over the rapids on the river and you say, I don't know if I can do that or not, but I sure want to give it a whirl. Everything in you says, yes, I want to do that. Now, today's hard saying is a good challenge. And every time I read it, I think, I don't know if I can do it, but I sure want to try. Listen to what Jesus says in John 15, verses 12 and 14. My command is this: love each other as I have loved you. Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. You are my friends if you do what I command. Love each other as I've loved you. Whoa. What a hard saying. What a beautiful challenge. Can you imagine living in a community where everyone loves each other like Jesus loves us? Sounds like a fantastic place to live. That's the kind of neighborhood I want to call home. That's the kind of church I want to be a part of. Think with me for a moment about some of the ways that Jesus loves us. Jesus loves us with a relentless passion. God's love is steadfast, patient. God's love never gives up. It never gives in. Jesus is always pursuing us. It doesn't matter how far or how fast you try to run from God. God's love is always nipping at your heels. God's love is relentless. It never runs out. It never, ever fades. Jesus loves us with a grandiose generosity. When it comes to loving you, Jesus is all in. He has given everything he had to give, even his very life. Jesus said to his disciples, no greater love has anyone than this, to lay down one's life for his friends. And then Jesus called them, and he calls you and me his friend. In the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus, we see a demonstration of the self-giving nature of God's love for us. Jesus loves us with grandiose generosity. And Jesus loves us with crazy compassion. The heart of Jesus breaks for the brokenhearted. Whatever you're going through, whatever keeps you up at night, whatever brings tears to your eyes, these things burden the heart of God. Jesus has a special affinity for the poor and the poor in spirit. He is drawn to those who are oppressed and beaten down by life. God hears the cry of the needy and responds with crazy compassion. God cares for you. And Jesus loves us with audacious grace. When Peter asked Jesus, how many times should we forgive someone who sins against us? He suggests the number 7. And Jesus told Peter not 7 times, but 70 times 7. The number 7 represented in the mind of Peter and Jesus the idea of completion or perfection. And Jesus is telling Peter, you just take that idea of completion and you multiply it by 70. It was his way of saying to Peter, I will forgive people no matter how many times they offend me or how many times they fail. I will always meet people with grace and forgiveness. God's audacious grace meets us wherever we are, but it never leaves us where it finds us. Relentless passion, grandiose generosity, crazy compassion, and audacious grace. These are the ways Jesus loves us. Next week, we're going to start meeting back here for in-person worship celebrations. And we're going to launch a new campaign. We're calling it Love Your Neighbor Today. Love your neighbor today. We're not going to call it a teaching series. We're going to call it a campaign. Because we're going to focus more on doing than thinking, and demonstration instead of discussion. The Love Your Neighbor Today campaign will be filled with ideas and suggestions, challenges and opportunities for us to love one another and to love our neighbors the way Jesus loves us. I can hardly wait. But here's the good news. We don't have to wait. We don't have to wait any longer. We don't have to wait until next week. We don't have to wait until we return to in-person worship gatherings. We don't have to wait until the COVID pandemic has passed. We don't have to wait for the scientists to create a vaccine. We don't have to wait until the governor lifts the social distance rule. We can start today. We can start today loving one another and loving our neighbors with relentless passion, audacious grace, crazy compassion, and grandiose generosity. Let's you and I give this hard saying of Jesus a whirl. Let's go for it. Let's love one another the way Jesus loves us.